Everybody, welcome back to Boldly Trekking. This is Ash, and you are?
Sean.
That's right, and I even spelled it right. And this is Sean. No, chat Sean. I don't know where you're going to be at in the thing. And we are talking Trek because that's what we like to do. We are the nerds galore. We let our flags fly. And we know that this is not only live long and prosper, it's nanu. All right.
Sean's fun.
It's a good time had by all. Oh, I've been outside. I made the mistake of holding some of my model parts in my hands as I was spray painting. So I got to scrub a lot of paint off myself later on. Anyways, what I was going to show you is I'm working on that Enterprise C right now. Here is the top of it, and there are so many windows on this. And so I have attempted to share window. I have attempted to create masks for every window. All right. Those masks are 0.5 millimeter by 1.75 millimeter. And just on the top there, because I left like a third of them free because I figured third shift got to sleep, right?
Sometime.
Here's the top all done. That was over 560 window masks just on this top alone.
Yeah.
And so I am going to be putting all those in. Let me make sure I go over to the chat and have that open in case Roberto pops on. And so that's what I was outside doing today after everything else is as I took this bad boy out and I put some black primer on and then some gray primer on. But based on how much light can get through, I still need to put more primer on that thing because there's too much light bleed. So more painting.
Have you done a test fit to see if like there's going to be any flash that needs to be addressed with the light at all?
Oh yeah, well I'm going to deflash everything first, and then I went through. I mean, there's basic steps that you go through when you're picking up your model. Like one of the main things, of course, you got to wash all of your parts once you get them because of the releasing agents on the models.
Yeah.
All right, and then once you're done washing them, before you wash them, you go over them with quadruple aught, 4-aught steel wool and hit them all with steel wool just to scuff them up a little bit because they're really smooth and the paint doesn't like sticking to that. So I've done all that, and now I'm putting all that on, and I'm going to be building a lighting system for the inside, and I'm also getting a navigational lighting chip from Tenna Controls. So I'm going to be attempting to put in the flashing navigational lights on this.
Nice.
I'm going to do like I normally do and light up the nacelles and all of the hall lighting, normal window lights and stuff like that. But this model is one of the translucent ones. And as you saw from the picture, it's a translucent plastic instead of an opaque plastic. So you're supposed to be able to either mask off the windows, but what most people do is they just go ahead and paint it and don't put the window masks on, and then they go through with like a dental tool here and scratch out each window that they want done individually. And depending on how you do it and how thick your paint is, and the paint's going to be thick on this, it'll look kind of jagged. So I was trying to paint masks, and so my wife was laughing at me because she's like, I don't have to worry about where you're at because I'm bent over a damn desk for hours on end last night putting little masks on little things. And you know what? I had a blast. I loved it.
I just remember when I was much younger, I painted a one.
Oh, tell me, Grandpa.
Yeah, Sonny, I remember whenever they had the wheel when we first came out with that.
Yeah, we only had one of them, so we just rolled it around.
Well, there's 3 eras of model building for me. There's the first era, which my dad mostly built my models, and I mostly destroyed them because Like in the original series, you see the Enterprise come at the camera and you see it leave real fast, so you whip it. And those nacelle struts are just not designed for it, so they just fly right off.
Yeah.
And then the second era, I built my own stuff, but I didn't really invest a lot of knowledge in how to do that. So it was
Right.
like from about 8 until about 12. It was like, oh, well, I'll just spray paint it a single solid color, and it's just no primer, no nothing, just spray paint. No, it didn't look good, but it was what I was able to do. And then I figured out, oh well, I could light this, and I could actually do something with it. And I actually took some time detailing it. And the 1537 motion picture model
Yes.
has huge light bleed seams.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah, on the window sets, because they're separate window pieces that go into the model. And it's like,
Here is what you use. I've found I love it for light bleed. It is Tulip dimensional fabric paint. This stuff
oh yeah,
is the blackest of blacks. Let me see if yeah. It is the blackest of blacks, and
mhm,
it will you put it in, and it's not a flat paint. It's a puffy paint. All right,
mhm,
it's for fabric. It's a puffy paint, and you use it on the inside. You don't use it on the outside. And if you put that in a seam, you can guarantee that seam will not show any light. As a matter of fact, I've had problems where I put it in, and
mhm.
that's where no light's coming from. Everywhere else, there's light coming from it, but not from there. Oh, you talk. I have to go on pause for a second. My boy just ran a race up in
Okay,
Topeka, so I'm gonna pause.
okay. So right now we're sitting here while he's taking a call, and we're going to discuss civvies in Star Trek. So civvies, if you have not or don't understand what a civvy is, it's a civilian. And in Star Trek, you see a lot of them. You may not be aware of them necessarily all the time, but in the original series and in Star Trek Next Generation, civilians make an appearance quite often, and they show up, um, especially in the first season, quite a few times.
Okay, what are we talking about? Sorry, he did.
Civvies.
He's civilians. Ugh,
Yeah.
the bane of any good military organization. Those lovely civilians. Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Matter of fact, I had typed up a few things,
Mhm.
and hold on. Let me move that over here and grab this one and move that over here. Yay! It's almost like I know what I'm doing. Almost. Yeah, so yeah, there were some questions I had because really the only time you see civilians shown in more than just a plot device was
Mhm.
in Next Generation. You know, Next Generation, they were on board the ship. I mean, they were part of everyday
Mhm.
life. But in
Yeah.
in TOS and then all the other stuff, except for DS9, but that was a space
Mhm.
station. And all the other ones, they're just the only time you see civilians is as a plot device.
Or as the guest of the week. That's the other one. You
Because the
know.
plot was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, there was lots of questions to be had about it, and and the fact that it is supposedly a post scarcity
Mhm.
society,
Mhm.
but who is it post scarcity for? That's the thing. I have no. I mean, if it's post scarcity, why the hell would anybody go to work? All right.
That's a good
If you just
question.
if you're just doing things that make you feel better, all right, because you're trying to better yourself and better society,
Mhm.
why are there garbage collectors? All right,
These are
and
questions.
I mean, what's the point? And also, like one of the questions that were brought up would, like Cisco's dad owning a restaurant.
Yeah.
All right, if it's a
How's he owned?
post-scarcity society and there's no money, how do you go about owning property? How do you get property? How do you maintain the property if there's no money to do these things with? If somebody who doesn't have because I can understand like Picard's vineyard that was handed down generation to generation through the family. I am the most British Frenchman ever, and I can understand that. Generational, having that property. But if you wanted to start your whole new business, how the hell you get the land for it if you don't have the money?
These are good questions. So I'm gonna interpose something that's actually kind of funny. So we start off the series in the original series with the conundrum of money, and I'm gonna point this out as you just did, but a slightly different way. So when you see Mudd's women, and if you bring up the little picture of the view screen where it has like the image on it of the banana.
Hold on. Oh yeah. Hold on. Banana.
One more that way. There's the aforementioned banana that I've talked about in space. Mudd he has a space banana that he uses as a ship. At least it looks like a banana to me, which led to the minion shot of the Nana. So you can own your own Mudd's Women starship as well.
Well, yeah, and
it's easy to get one. All you have to do is go to the grocery store.
According to God, I forget who did this model that Jessica bought me, but this
Eaglemoss.
What?
Yeah.
Eaglemoss.
Eaglemoss.
Well, hold on. Let me turn off this blurring effect. La 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 la. Oh, I can't do it while we're recording. Isn't that great? I wish I'd have known that. Yeah, according to Eaglemoss, this is what Mudd's ship looked like.
I like the banana idea better.
Well, you know what? This reminds me. You know what? Really reminds me of is the humpback whale from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah,
the way just the whole jaw just makes me think it's like, oh no, not again. All right.
Well, here's something for you to look at. Look at it for a moment.
What?
Look at it again and think, what if a humpback whale and a Klingon D7 had a baby?
Yeah, basically that's what that is. Yeah. But yeah, that's the one from Eaglemoss.
Yeah, I actually would like to have one of those models, and I'd put SS Minnow on it, and have like a little hole in the front.
She got me that from whatever that retro places in the mall that sells all the used stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that place. She got me that one, and also the one Orion one that blew up from the TOS.
Oh, the one where they basically strafe the Enterprise and they finally got a good lucky shot and nail it.
Took her out.
Yeah,
I got that one up there too.
Cool.
But
so getting back to
Mudd.
Selling Mudd, who is the gentleman with the hat that is in the photos I sent you, is a nefarious character in the original series. He actually gets around and causes trouble for the original series cast, but he is definitely a civilian.
Most definitely.
And his freighter captain, who was flying the Space Banana, or captained the Space Banana, died before they left on their trip. So he decided to take over and fly the Space Banana. There's some space hippies.
Yeah, there's space hippies. Hold on, I'm trying to go through. And there's Mudd's women.
Yep, all three of them, who are taking the Venus drug, which leads to them essentially trying to get husbands. The thing is that they're trying to find. They are wiving settlers, as Mudd puts it, and they live on planets with no opportunities to find any kind of mate. So they're going out of their way to travel across the galaxy to find somebody to be with. Now, when they get to the planet with the dilithium crystals, the dilithium miners are talking about how they've, they could buy whole planets, they could buy riches, and Mudd even says he can buy the Enterprise if he, works it out right with the dilithium miners. So the point you made is actually accurate. You're a post-scarcity society. So what is currency? What has value?
Mm-hmm.
And it basically boils down to, like you talked about last episode, dilithium, the things that make you go, to borrow a Packlet Turner phrase,
Well,
are the
and that's one of the things too, and often in my sci-fi readings, once you get to post scarcity, the
Mhm,
way to post scarcity society is an abundance of energy, abundance of
mhm,
power that people can utilize. Because if you
mhm,
have enough energy and the capacity to manipulate and utilize the energy, you can have things like replicators, so you can make everything that you need. All right,
mhm. Right.
and so you know, are replicators available for everybody? All right.
Maybe
If
there's different versions.
well, yeah, that's the thing too, is you have different versions of replicators, and you have things that are
Mhm,
locked up. And like we discussed, I believe we discussed last time, what if,
mhm. We did.
these replicators, you have certain things that, one are locked due to, security reasons. You don't want
Mhm.
everybody, just going around and dialing up their own, disruptor. But also,
Here's your homemade home thermonuclear weapon.
yeah, yeah. But also, what if you hold the patent for something? All right.
Mhm.
If they want to be able to print it off on the replicator, they have to purchase purchase a license to go ahead and print that off on the replicator.
Right.
And there'll be all kinds of DRM involved in that too, so you don't take that file and hack it and make a whole bunch of them.
Mhm,
But so at that point, what are you trading for that, single use or multi-use, file for the
mhm.
replicator for your certain thing?
Right.
And so that comes into the money, or whatever would be used for money, the gold press latinum, which from what I heard, the whole
Mhm,
reason for gold press latinum, because latinum was something that couldn't be replicated,
mhm.
and the gold pressed was because it was very unstable and it needed to be surrounded by an inert material, and gold was that.
Well, that's a pretty poor choice because gold is very soft.
Yeah, but it's inert. It doesn't interact with
Yeah,
things.
it's inert. I would grant you that, but it's
All right. It
Mm.
is the metal version of a noble gas.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
kind of like banana.
Um,
But so that's the reason that the Ferengi are all about the gold plus latinum, because it is something
mhm,
that cannot be replicated.
right.
That's latinum. I mean, and if
So
you what?
go ahead. I'm sorry. I was
No,
going to go ahead.
I was gonna
Sorry.
say, and so then at that point, you're trading in things that cannot be replicated. That is
Yeah.
your money. Because as we
Mhm.
all know from goodness, was it Hitchhiker's, was it in one of the Hitchhiker's guidebooks? Um, I think it was So Long and Thanks for All the Fish. I'm not sure, but they were on a ship that crashed, and all the people on the ship decided that they were going to use leaves as money,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they were all,
It
you
was
know,
actually future or past Earth.
it was
They
past
were,
Earth, because all those
yeah.
hairdressers and telephone repairmen became the Earth people, and the society that they came from all died out from an illness that was transmitted from dirty telephones.
Right. It was the Golga Frictions is who you're thinking of.
Very good. And so, but like that,
Okay.
if you
Sure.
have something that is infinitely, infinitely
Mhm.
duplicatable, you can make lots of it. It loses its value, kind of like our fiat currency that we have now. And that's the reason that Bitcoin is going up in value, where fiat currencies are going down in value.
So are you saying that tribbles would not make a good money?
No, but I'm thinking they would make a good food source.
They probably would.
If
It's just
if
safe for the hair.
we don't know how, maybe that hair is like angel hair pasta. We don't know.
I just get this impression of somebody trying to eat a hairy tribble and sticking it in their mouth and choking on it. Um,
It's like a
it was like,
70s
I
adult
have a
movie.
hairball.
This is horrible. Uh,
Put some more pasta sauce on it. It'll be okay. Um, so actually, the thing also is like DeSalle, who I didn't get a photo of, but he makes a comment when they're trying to. DeSalle is a character from the first two seasons of Star Trek, and he's upset because he can't get the signal through, and he talks about credits to Navy beans, and the fiat currency that the Federation uses is called a credit. You never get to see one because I guess it's all electronic, but essentially, it's talked about several times throughout different series that they use credits. And so, like you were talking about with fiat currency, the base of the currency is tied to some sort of value,
mhm.
whether it be work or whether some kind of item that has a set value.
Right.
So dilithium would probably be a pretty good choice. Gold pressed latinum would be another.
See,
Um,
I wouldn't want to
so,
go with dilithium. I wouldn't want to go with anything that you actually burn.
but do you burn dilithium?
And you burn through it.
Well, you can burn the crystal, that's for sure.
Right. And that's my
Um,
point. I wouldn't tie, I mean, that would be like tying it to oil. All right.
the tyranny of the nice guy appears again.
What's that?
Coming to rescue you, but we want your we want your
Yeah.
crystals.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, so I think it would have to be something, like I said, once again, that couldn't be, replicated, and
Mhm,
also wouldn't be used up. I mean, that's a good thing about gold and silver, is that,
mhm,
it's ornamental, and
mhm.
also, can be used in electronics. Although that I hear that gold is not as good for connections as I heard. Apparently other things are better conductors than gold, but that's a whole nother story. Um, and so, basically it's stagnant because you don't use it for anything except for ornamental and, to pass
Mhm.
it around.
Right. Well, the other thing is like if you want to flip forward to like to some of the other photos, we'll go past Cyrano Jones because Cyrano basically is a freighter captain who decides to cause an ecological catastrophe in the Klingon Empire. Um, uh, so
Was that him?
no, that's not Cyrano Jones.
Oh,
There we go.
oh no,
This is
our triple
yeah,
peddler.
yeah, the Triple Peddler. He caused an ecological catastrophe in the Klingon Empire because he takes the device or the genetically engineered device that they created or creature called the Glomer in an animated episode away from them, and so the Tribbles overpopulate um, and basically destroy a Klingon planet, which still is quite hilarious thinking about the Klingons being terrified of and upset about Tribbles because
Everybody has their thing, man. You
yeah,
know,
true.
look at humans and spiders.
Yeah. I mean, this scene actually is kind of interesting because talking about what people trade, I actually would argue that there are different bases for currency depending on your empire. Um, Klingons would probably value blood wine. It'd be like,
Again, you drink it.
well, again, you drink it, but the other thing is, can you replicate blood wine? And actually, will it taste the same if you replicate it?
I
So,
just watched um the second episode of the Gambit Next Generation just like a couple
mhm,
hours ago. Because like I
mhm,
said, I'm going through them all. Season
mhm,
7.
okay,
And in it, as they are trying to distract the Klingon courier, Data says, "Here, try some of this blood wine. Our Lieutenant Worf has been working on it, and this replicated, he says, tastes as good as normal blood wine." Of
ah,
course, the courier pours it out on the floor, but that's a whole nother thing. So obviously, you can replicate the blood wine. And once again, you don't want to do anything that you're going to consume. It reminds me of like I'm not sure if it's just a parable or if it actually happened, but an individual who had gotten a very expensive box of cigars and insured the
Mhm.
box of cigars
Mhm.
um, against damage, and then went ahead and proceeded to smoke his cigars and then filed a claim because they all burnt up and went away. And
Mhm.
in court, the judge said, okay, technically, yes, he did have a claim, and the insurance company has to honor that claim because they were destroyed. But the insurance company can go ahead and file a countersuit because for arson. And so, but once again, the point being, you don't want to put it around anything that you can consume,
Mhm.
because then we would have whole. I mean, it reminds me of if you ever heard of during the 1600s in Holland and Amsterdam, they based their economy around tulips and tulip bulbs. It
Yeah.
was a great, I
Yeah.
mean, it was the first big bubble. It was the tulip bubble in Amsterdam. And they had, I mean, seriously, there was a lot of money wrapped around these certain strains of tulips and these certain bulbs. And then individuals just went ahead and said, you know what, it's a plant, I can make more. And that's what they did. And eventually the whole thing just burst and plummeted, and people lost their shirts and all the stuff like that. But you just don't
Mhm.
want to base it on something like that.
Right. Actually, I think as commodities go, anything you can grow is kind of a gamble, but I think it also basically boils down to your technology. Like more primitive technologies or technological species would probably be based upon consumables like wheat and quattro triticale.
Oh yeah.
Um, and you would, I mean, just looking at Earth history, I mean, agriculture around the Euphrates, the basic barter system that they
Hmm.
came up with involved so much measure of wheat versus so much, hours of labor.
We still
Um,
have it in our vernacular when we say that somebody is worth their salt.
yeah, I mean, it's still there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still part of our society. Um, the question is, since I know the Federation doesn't use gold pressed latinum as a fiat or as a basis way to do the whatever they consider the credit, whatever the value is.
Yeah.
Um, the question is then, if we're not doing it on dilithium, what would the Federation use?
Yeah.
And then that
What would they tie their credit to?
right, and so then that really sort of comes up with the question of how do you purchase anything if your credit is not based off anything that you can actually obtain or trade for?
That is
So,
our fiat currency that we have now.
mhm,
In the 1970s, they, originally our currency, back in the 1800s, late 1800s, was tied to the gold standard. And
mhm,
then in the early 1900s, they took it off the gold standard, went to the silver standard. And then in the 1970s, they removed it from this, I think it was 70s, they removed it from
mhm,
the silver standard. And now it became a true fiat currency where it's not tied to anything except for our reputation.
mhm.
And the US's reputation ain't what it used to be. Uh,
No other political comments, but
nothing,
just that.
nothing there.
That's it.
And so that's the reason you see, this line going up, this hockey puck of a hockey stick of a line going up of, of inflation with our currency.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
before, was it 1920 something? We didn't have inflation.
yeah,
At
they
least
were expensive
nothing like
or
we have
increasing.
now.
I mean, there was the whole essentially the rail tycoons could essentially cause you to have inflation because they would jack up your prices to ship your goods,
Well,
and
there's
that was a
that,
problem.
and when you, I mean, there was localized stuff, like when you
Mhm,
went into a boom town. All
mhm.
right. But that was just because of scarcity of goods.
Right,
All right.
and now you're in a post scarcity society in the Federation. So,
Exactly. And we have gotten well off tangent here. Uh, we spent
true.
25 minutes talking about money.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it is important to civilian society. I mean,
It is very important to civilian society. I mean, there has to be a reason that they have jobs. They
mhm,
have jobs. I mean, even in the JJ verse, all right, you
mhm,
saw um, uh, the one person who's running that data center that goes ahead
mhm,
and blows it up for Khan.
mhm.
All right, but he's actually that. Oh, hold on, that was actually a Federation job he had. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was a Federation. He worked for Section 31, which we won't mention that movie.
Was it Section
But
31?
yeah, he worked for Section 31. It was a Section 31 archive underneath whatever city it was. I think it was
I think it was
Boston.
London.
Oh, it was London? Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I that's what I'm that's in my heart, I think it was London. But in my heart, I
Yeah,
think I'm a
I
right
will say
sexy
you got
beast.
it right.
What?
I could be wrong. I mean, I'm perfectly possibly wrong. So, um, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny that you know, talking about how with the way things go in Star Trek with our with in the Society of the Federation,
Mhm,
you have people who obviously do work, go to work every day,
mhm.
do a job, get paid something. We don't know why they're getting paid or what they're getting paid with exactly, but they obviously are able to afford something because they can purchase goods
There's
and buy
luxuries.
triples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they take trips, they go places, they do
Mhm.
things. They buy
They're able to go
clothing.
to they're able to go to Cisco's and have a meal with gumbo and
Yeah.
jambalaya down in New Orleans. I
Ooh,
mean,
don't make me hungry. Don't make me hungry. Um, although
I'm sorry, man.
me and my brother, we went to the range, did some shooting, and then afterwards we
Mhm.
went to Passage to India and had curry for lunch. That was really
Oh, that's
good.
nice.
Oh, I loved it.
Good stuff.
Loved it. But yeah, like is the Federation more like an oligarchy where Starfleet maintains the tech that keeps society utopian? Are they the benevolent overlords that are,
Mm.
if you toe the line, you get to
Mhm.
live in the utopia that we tell you you get to live in. Now, that being said, as it's been, broached quite heavily, I believe in the first season of Strange New Worlds, um, you know, they are the oligarch that says you can't do any genetic modification.
Mhm.
Yeah. And which just makes me laugh because, they are living in a society that benefits from previous societies doing modifications. But now they're saying, "Oh, it's not good to do."
Well, it's kind of funny because the problem with Star Trek, at least in this regard, is that when they came out with eugenics was a idea that I could discuss it ad infinitum. But one of the basic problems is flawed ideas on what makes us who we are.
Right.
Essentially, like, oh, your forehead is low or your forehead is high. So obviously, you're from the Alpine or you're from the you're from the Germanic people. So you're obviously whatever. So the thing about the eugenics wars, as originally presented, was Khan and his Supermen people had been genetically created to had taken over the planet, over half the planet at least, and there had been a massive war. And this was set in the 90s.
Mhm.
Don't tell people in Strange New Worlds that because it doesn't
Hey,
work
we
that way.
already passed the Bell riots. Keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, the thing is that the convolution of genetic alteration and eugenics don't necessarily mean the same thing, but we never really got over that.
Right.
So the problem is in Star Trek, we've muddled it up. So anything that's genetic alteration is now is genetic or is
Mhm.
now eugenics and so on and so forth. So the problem is that in the storyline, we had this war that we were so upset about because massive numbers of people died. Well, that's not good. So we don't want to have that happen again, and it's in memory. So we're not going to let that happen, which is kind of funny to say that because, well, modern day Earth. I'm not going to say much more than that, but
No.
Obviously, we didn't learn a lesson then, and how did the Federation, how did Earth learn this lesson and decide that genetics bad, tree pretty, fire bad,
Yeah.
genetics bad.
Well, I think that right there just once again shows the innate overreaction of the human mob, and that's
Mhm.
what happens there. Is the mob? What was it that Agent K said in the first Men in Black? Um, People, I mean, human, individuals are
Mhm.
smart. People as a whole are dumb, reactionary, and they just over respond to everything, and they're idiots.
We're
Um,
dangerously stubborn, implacably stupid, per
yes,
down at times.
yeah. I mean, the mob. You don't want any kind of mob rule because the mob is a dangerous,
Mhm.
reactionary, stupid creature.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what, man, we've gone off on the sticks again. And that is one of the things that led to the whole outlawing of any kind of genetic modification, and to
Mhm.
the point that you know they are automatically, um because number one in Strange New Worlds, I forget her character's name.
Well, Una,
Uno.
which means one.
Yeah, I know. That's yeah. She never did any genetic modification of her own. She was just the result of genetic modification, and
Mhm.
they were ready to outlaw her. They were ready to outlaw her for the crimes of, in their opinion, for the crimes of her parents. And that
Yeah.
right there, just to me, just goes against what is presented to us as the ideals of the Federation.
Here's something that's going to even more bewilder you. Okay, and I think what
I
we
swear,
are going to need.
by the time this podcast sums up, however many episodes in the future, we're going to be staunch Romulans. Go ahead.
Jelon True.
Mhm.
Um, I think we're going to need to put a pin in this whole genetics discussion
Oh God,
because we're just rolling with it and just going all over the place with it. But I do want to point this out. Okay, Spock is the absolute element of Star Trek pointing out its own hypocrisy.
yeah.
Okay, what is Spock? He's half human, half Vulcan. You can't have that by,
Just Zug Zug. Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't work that way. You
yeah.
have to have genetic manipulation.
They had help.
Yeah,
Genetic
yeah, they had
manipulation.
help. But
You're
yet,
absolutely right.
Julian Bashir, who didn't cause his own manipulation, from what I remember of the Deep Space Nine story from
Mhm.
Julian Bashir, it's been a number of years since I actually watched the episode that his parents were in, and they uncover that he's been genetically manipulated. He was actually had a mental disability. I think he had some sort of learning disability, and so they took him to a lab and had him
His
modified.
character is definitely on the spectrum. Go ahead.
Yeah, but they took him to a lab and had him modified. He had no choice over it. It wasn't
Yeah,
I'm going to do this to myself, and yet the Federation was like, we're going
yeah.
to have to talk about this.
You know,
You know, uh,
strip you of your
it's
rank and all of your accolades and everything because of something your parents did. That always never sat well with me.
right. It's a very hypocritical sort of. Uh, don't worry about the nice guy with the pointed ears because he's fun and he attracts viewers. But
Yeah.
this guy over here who's kind of annoying, but he's not necessarily going to attract as many viewers. But we're going to make it a dramatic issue for his life that he has to face because now we're dealing with eugenics and geneticists.
Hmm.
So I think the whole thing with Una is sort of a reflection of the Bashir issue replayed, but you don't have the side note of Spock. Because Spock is standing right there next to Una in Strange New Worlds, but nobody gives him a hard time.
Right.
I mean, it's not like, wait.
Hmm.
Anyway, getting back to, I know you wanted to discuss cities in space, so I'm
Right.
I'll try and reel it back a little bit. So obviously, you have the people going out into space.
Hmm.
They're able to buy ships. They're able to go out and hither and yon, and like essentially one of the things that's hilarious is that you have people buying large vessels. I mean, fairly large vessels, like Seven of Nine's parents, going out to, hey, we've only recently heard about the Borg, but let's go out and visit them because it
Let's go
sounds like a great
study.
idea.
Nothing could happen wrong here. Let's go. Let's take our little girl with us. It's
this,
gonna be great.
this is like watching a prelude to Jaws. They find out there's this huge great white shark that's out there, but they're going to take out this little rowboat
Hmm.
and go out and study this great white shark. Nothing could go wrong.
I no. I think you're not. See, they didn't take out a rowboat. They took out those little water wings that you just put on yourself. All right, and then before they went out, they covered themselves in lard for insulation. All right.
And blood. And
Yeah.
blood. Don't forget the
Yeah.
blood. A little bit of chum here.
Yeah.
That'll help.
Well, that's how they were going to get the shark to come visit them. Yeah.
No, I added the boat because obviously they had a vessel of some sort. So, but I guess what they probably did is they chummed the water as they were going out.
Oh
So
yeah.
the
They
shark was able
totally
to find.
everything that they could to screw themselves over. I mean, yeah, but yeah, so they're going out and doing stuff. Other people are going out and doing stuff. We're having problems with the Romulans and pre-TOS era because people are jumping their claims and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and they're jumping our claims. So there is all kinds of humans going around and doing stuff,
Mhm.
and let's face it, humans gonna procreate. They gonna zug zug. All right. And
Snoosh.
especially once you start getting into a society where more and more people are not
Mhm.
dying as much or as quickly because
Mhm.
advances in medical stuff, and two, um they're able to overcome, look at Spocky there, they're able to overcome issues with childbirth because
Mhm.
they're the far majority of uh of conceptions don't make
Mhm.
it term.
Yeah.
All right. That's the reason that most women will wait until after, when it's getting up to the close to the end of their first trimester before they even
Mhm.
want to say anything because
Right.
they don't want to, everybody and then nothing, and so
Yeah.
there's a whole thing to wait until after your first trimester to even mention anything. You take
Right.
away the fact that that happens as much as it does now, you're going to have such an explosion of population.
Mhm.
And humans, if we start stacking up on each other, we're going to want a relief valve. We're going to want to spread out. All right.
Mhm.
That's the reason you're going to have the colonies on the moon, the colonies on Mars. All right.
Mhm.
The whole thing there, the belters. And then it's going to go out to all the different planets. And I'm telling you, it's not just going to be a planet after a good, if it's a paradise like a lot of them are, or they're
Mhm.
turned into, after a good 100 years, you're going to be looking at several major cities and spreading populations. You're looking at millions of individuals per
Mhm.
planet, and
Mhm.
this is all just
Or
going to
more.
stack up and stack up. So there's going to be just like a tidal wave of
Mhm.
not even just humanity, of every culture's population just spilling
Mhm.
out and spreading over. I mean, we are the quintessential apex of the DNA von Neumann device that
Mhm.
is just going to spread over and take over the universe. If
We
we
are
can
the
get
gray goo,
out of our
or
gravity well.
we are the
What?
green goo. We are the
Yeah,
green goo.
yeah, we are the green goo, and instead of the gray goo, we are the green goo.
We're just
And
highly evolved green goo.
but and so I
Sometimes.
think I and once again, it is it's basically from a constraint of budget,
Yeah.
that they weren't able to show just the sheer mass of population that the Federation was dealing with.
They actually
And
did. They did address it actually in an episode in the original series.
what was that?
It was there's an episode where Kirk is infected with some kind of meningitis, and he goes to a planet where the planet is literally overrun with humanity. It's called the episode. I'm trying to remember the name of the episode, but let me see if I can find it for you. Because I normally can remember things, but I've had like 2 hours of sleep for today, so I'm kind of like, man. So, but anyway, the point of it is the planet's called Ardana, and in the interest of like, hey, we need to reuse the Enterprise set because we don't want to build any other sets.
Yeah.
We're going to build what is called a bottle show, kind of, and it's all on the Enterprise set. And so the thing is that they recreate the Enterprise on the planet, so Kirk has something to run around in and hang out with this girl who is susceptible to his bug.
Oh,
So he can
to
infect her.
his Star Trek wiles. Okay.
So he can infect her with his germs. So she can spread
Right.
them to the population and cause massive amounts of death, and get the population.
They were wanting to thin the herd.
Yeah, basically. So let me see here. It's called the Mark of Gideon. The episode is. So
Okay.
it's uses extensive shots of the interior of the Enterprise. Actually, it's one of the best episodes for getting to see parts of the Enterprise you don't normally get to see much of. So if you
Why
ever,
am I not remembering this episode?
it's William Shatner with a young woman with the Enterprise sets. That's about it. Maybe you don't remember it because it sort of blends into so many other
every
episodes.
other episode with Kirk and a hottie. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing he doesn't do is, pull on his boots and his quarters and go, hey.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. We done did the deed. Yeah, okay. Okay, so yeah, and that's the point being, it was showing the population and the massive population that was happening on that planet.
Yep.
But here's the thing: they never said that they were human, but it doesn't matter. It was just an overpopulated planet.
They were humanoid.
Well, yeah,
they obviously could show interest in Kirk, so they obviously had enough similarity that there's a possibility that, like with Spock, just a little bit of tinkering, you could have a whole bunch of Kirk children.
I've often heard that in the galactic scale, one of the jokes is that the humans will mate with anything. And Kirk, he had the juju enough that he was able to get even a salt vampire hot for him. So, what can you say?
I mean, it's one of those things where Star Trek VI actually made fun of it, where the Commonwealth is coming on to Kirk, and McCoy is like, "What is it with you?" Yeah, but generally speaking, the hottie of the week was always attracted to Kirk. If it wasn't Kirk, it was Spock. If it wasn't Spock, it was McCoy. Sulu, Chekhov, and Scotty got like one, maybe 2 episodes where he had the hottie.
Yeah,
but it was generally going to be those three. And
yeah,
poor Scotty or poor Chekhov and poor Sulu was like, we just sit here and fly the ship, guys.
From what we know about George now, I think he was happy with that. Not so much Conan, whatever his name was.
Walter Koenig.
Koenig, thank you. But no, I was going to say something to that effect. Yeah, you notice that in every series, you have your resident, babe magnet. You had Kirk, then you had Riker. All right, and
or Data.
What?
Or Data. He's fully functional.
Well, yeah, come on. He's not so much a babe magnet as, he was the one that they went to satiate their curiosity. Um,
Don't tell Brent Spiner's fans that.
hold on. Wasn't there a line from Heavy Metal? I'm fully functional.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I wonder if they got that from there. Anyway,
I think Heavy Metal came out
no,
first,
that's
and
what I'm
then
saying. I'm wondering
oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
if the Star Trek writers got it from Heavy Metal.
or
And then let
Brent
me
did.
see. In Voyager,
Mhm.
who was the hottie magnet in Voyager?
709.
No, she was the hottie.
Well, then it would be Robert Picardo as the Doctor.
No, I think it was more. God, who's the white guy who was the pilot?
That's Tom Paris.
Yeah, Paris. I think Paris, up until the point that he actually settled down with one of his, claimants. He was one,
Mhm.
and also Kim was one. All right, they kind of swapped off there, which I always
Which,
thought it
which,
was
which
bad. The fact that everybody else got, promotions and everything, but Kim stayed an ensign for 7 freaking years.
I'm going to poke a little fun at Harry Kim. So I apologize in advance, but that man has died so many times, and he's not even a Time Lord.
That man has led with his little Harry so many times. I mean, see, that's my whole thing
Mhm.
is, even just time and grade, he should have gotten up, from ensign, all right, to lieutenant junior grade. He should have at least
Mhm.
made it up to there and then been busted back down for all of his freaking antics. All right.
So I'm not going to spoil um, Lower Decks for you, but if you haven't seen last season,
I haven't seen the
you're
last
gonna
season yet.
okay. You're gonna need to check it out because what you're talking about directly relates to the last season at some
Dude, I
point.
tell you, I could have been a writer. Anyway, and which we know one of the writers from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Susan Lambden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. So, okay, and then in Enterprise,
Hmm.
it was Trip.
Yeah.
He was such a babe magnet, he actually got pregnant from one of the babes. All right.
It was also Archer. Um, he was a babe magnet to some degree. He had a number of dalliances with alien women
He had a number of dalliances, but when it came to truly tripping and falling into the hoo-ha, that was Trip.
and getting pregnant by it.
Yeah, and getting pregnant by it, even when he didn't even do anything. And let me see.
It's like we touched fingers and now you're pregnant. Like a Saturday
DS9
Night
was
Live sketch,
Dax.
huh?
DS9 it was Dax.
Yeah, Dax was the hottie magnet. I would agree.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Didn't
Worf,
matter. Didn't matter what
or
race
Worf,
or what gender. Dax was
or
about it.
Worf, or Worf.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
like who the hell was the writer and what drug and B what level of drugs were they on where they all of a sudden wrote it into canon that Klingons have 2 peni.
Maybe somebody was like having a really good night, and they were like, you know, double your pleasure, double gum. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Just
All I know is they
I have
went
no idea.
they
I
zigged
have
when they
nothing.
should have zagged. Um
Like this sounds like a great idea.
yeah, they're so manly. They got 2 manhoods. Yeah, anyway.
Be like they parked the bus in both spots.
And I've not watched enough Discovery because
Hmm.
I couldn't get past the giant tardigrade. All right.
Well, I'm going to tell you that Booker or Shepherd Book is probably, I would say, would have been the choice for the Babe Magnet, but he basically hooks up with Michael Burnham, which is the
Yeah.
protagonist, the female protagonist. So it's a couple thing. There's not really a lot of Kirkisms running around on Discovery, at least not generally speaking.
Okay, but
And
Strange New Worlds, I would have to say, God, I forget her name, but the pilot.
Oh, I just watched the episode.
I know.
I watched the Rigel 7 episode, and Erica Ortiz
I think so.
Ortega. Anyway, I'm sorry. Bad Sean. Not remembering the name.
It's a horrible Sean. Erica
Yeah.
Ortegas.
Okay, there you go. I was
Yeah.
close. I was in the ballpark.
You were doing
Kind of.
very good. Yeah, she is definitely the player. All right.
Yeah. Although I can honestly say that, you know, with the way they've written some of the characters, like Kirk, they actually have had Kirk on the show, and
I don't like
gets a
who they
lot
chose
more.
for Kirk. Mm-mm.
But he actually gets a lot of bad reputation even before he actually has the reputation, because Uhura is like, "I'm not interested in you. Please don't. Please stop." And he's like, "I'm not trying to hit on you."
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a scene that actually is hilarious because, you know, after having watched the Kelvin universe, you're like, of course he's hitting on her. Not really.
No.
But, you know, she's having a little thing, not to ruin anybody's episode, but she's having a little moment because she's having something going on with her brain. And so she's visualizing something, and she pops him and knocks him out onto the floor. And he's like, "I told you I wasn't trying to hit on you." For the only time in his entire career.
Yeah, the only time he was trying to keep it in his pants.
He gets plowed for it. I was like, that's absolutely hilarious.
Mm.
Yeah, especially considering what happened with the Kelvin universe. It was like, you know, all the times that Kirk hit on Uhura, and it was like, you know, she's dating Spock. It doesn't.
Well, he didn't know it then. He didn't know. As soon as you'll notice that as soon as he realized that she was actually in a relationship, be it with Spock or whoever, he stopped hitting on her. So you got to give him that.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I mean,
I'll give him a little bit of leeway with that. I still think that it's hilarious to me that, you know, Kirk was the guy that was he was cartoonishly over the top with his prowess in the Kelvinverse.
mm-hmm.
I mean, to the point where he's having a dalliance with a cat person in Starfleet Academy at one point in time because she had a tail. And
well, he's always been chasing tail. No, but the thing is,
quite literally.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. Was was she a member of the Kazin, or was she with the?
I think she's supposed to be I think that was the Kelvinverse version of the Cation.
Okay.
Which is another discussion point we'll have to have sometime about cats and Star Trek, because, I mean, wow, there's like stuff you could talk about all day long.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole. You're more the cat guy than I am.
I mean, you see them running around behind me all the time.
They were actually having a fight at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I know.
There was definitely a and one of them, left.
Yeah, they love each other. I'm pretty. I'm more pretty.
Yeah. It's a cat's love. It's very conditional.
Yeah. I love you, sister, but I want to whack you upside the head.
But let me see here. What other? Let me shrink-a-dink that again. Bring this back. Oh, where was it at? Here. And what other things here? Civilian roles in Star Trek Society, civilian life aboard starships. We already talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Civilians in other cultures. We see Bajorans. But Bajorans, their society was more a theological society.
It was more spiritual, although they were technological and they were very much interested in going out into space. Cardassians came along and kind of ruined it for them.
Oh, yeah.
So they pretty much were left with, oh, look, we've got our fighters and our slight ships that are like tiny and, maybe are warp capable depending on the episode. But, generally speaking, we're flying these small fighters because that's all we have left.
Yeah.
And
let me see. We had the Ferengi, which were just the Star Trek's version of ultimate capitalism.
Mhm.
Do you think? And this is just a question, and I hate to
Mhm.
even bring it up.
Mhm.
I am hating myself right now for bringing it up and thinking maybe I shouldn't bring it up, but what the hell? You live only
Mhm.
once. Because I've often said that like the Klingons were originally Roddenberry's version of the Russians.
Mhm.
All right, and the Romulans were Romans. All right,
Mhm.
it's in the name, stuff like that. Do you think the Ferengi were supposed to be Jewish? They were short. They had the big noses. They had the big ears. They were all about the money. Do you think he was anti-Semitic? Semitic?
Semitic.
Semitic.
Um, I I think it's cartoonishly sort of similar.
I'm pulling that
I,
string, seeing if that cardigan unwinds.
um, the thing that actually also kind of makes me think of is a used car dealer, because the guy's like, hey, I got a car for you, man. I got a car for you. You know,
Yeah, Herb Tarlick.
yeah. Um, to be honest, this is almost as bad as the whole thing with the Transformers movie, where they had the Transformers that were clearly racially sort of stereotyping things that
You mean
were
like Jar Jar
uncomfortable.
Binks?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing is that, yeah, I would say it's a valid argument, a valid point. I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I think it actually is a valid point. I think it's kind of one of those things where, as we've discussed before, um, Star Trek has come from a period where we were still sort of waking up from, who we were before.
Mhm.
So we had racism, obviously. There were elements of, problems with eugenics, obviously, because they made that a big issue. Um, the whole thing with making the Ferengi what they were into this cartoonish clown figure of, the uber capitalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's a valid read on it. Because it fits actually the pre 1940s uh, drawings, actually, of
Mhm.
what people thought the Jews looked like in
Yep.
horrific ways. I mean,
The
um,
caricatures. Yep.
yeah, in Nazi Germany and even before Nazi Germany, they were replete. I mean, goes all the way back to Spain. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, we're talking like hundreds of years. I
Mhm.
mean, the caricatures in Shakespeare, the Jew who wants his pound of flesh
Mhm.
from the Moor,
The Merchant
uh,
of Venice. Yeah.
the Merchant of Venice. I mean, yeah, I think you're actually hitting a nail on the head.
That's what I'm saying, and Roddenberry is not around to defend himself, so I'm going with it.
Yeah, nobody's perfect. I mean, that's one of the
Oh
things
god,
that
no. I mean,
uh,
look what Roddenberry did to our beloved Fossa because he couldn't handle the military aspect of Starfleet, even though
oh
he
yeah,
loaded up his ships with shields, phasers, and photons. I mean, one of the
oh,
best episodes in TOS was a straight ripoff of a submarine warfare. I mean,
balance of terror. Yeah.
yeah, the Balance of Terror, and so it's he didn't like I mean that's one of the things is he didn't like the his own universe that he had created in some aspects,
Hmm.
and yeah, that just happens.
He's got a weird dialectic because he's the uber patriot,
Hmm.
Constitution class. You have the episode where, basically it's the Yangs versus the Coms. You know, E Plegnista, I pledge allegiance to the flag, and they can't pronounce it correctly because they've lost the ability to speak properly,
Hmm.
because we've not taught them in school, so obviously they can't learn.
No.
Um, and other things that are kind of comical about it is that he served in the military. The Enterprise, just as a thing, if you look at Matt Jefferies' design for the original Enterprise, uh, there's a call out that's sort of both reflective of James Doohan and Gene Roddenberry. Is the inside of the nacelle, the little intercooler section is supposed to be similar to a P-38 turbocharger.
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to be like a homage to both of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's military callouts throughout Star Trek, and to say that your utopia will be able to exist without having a military is almost like saying, "Oh, well, we're just going to nice them to death."
And that's, I think, one of the reasons. I mean, with the pendulum swinging the other direction, I think is one of the reasons that that whole Section 31 movie went to crap, is because they tried to swing it the whole other direction and say that their society could not exist without this ultra evil thing happening on the, on the peripheries.
Mhm.
Which, I can see that in some smaller aspects, but not in a Suicide Squad kind of way.
That
Which is
was the
what they were
part
trying to do.
I kept trying to tell you what was on the tip of my brain, but I couldn't do it. It was mixed of Mission Impossible,
Hmm.
a heist movie, and Suicide Squad,
Yep.
because the characters are so totally over the top. It was
Oh, it
like,
is.
who wrote, what?
Everybody has their
What?
archetype. I mean,
Mhm,
it was almost as much more of archetype. And what was recently, because I was doing some gaming,
mhm,
some RPG. A friend has come up with his own role playing game that he has us testing out, and
mhm,
every one of the character, because he's trying to create the standard, the party, your standard party that you
mhm,
have. You got your tank,
mhm,
you got blah 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 blah. But he's going a little bit different. Like, one of the guys is like the explosive expert from Atlantis, the
mhm,
Disney movie, where in his
mhm,
bag, yeah, I got some paper clips and some dynamite, and so you have the guy who's basically got the bag of holding with
mhm,
everything in it. But
mhm.
what was my whole point? I forget.
You were talking about gaming, and the guy had come up with a game for.
Well, no,
Uh,
it was basically, like with the Section 31, where they were trying to do you know, your standard D&D party, where you have
mhm,
one of each, and each one is a overly done archetype.
mhm,
And kind of reminds me of when in Pulp Fiction, when Uma Thurman's character is talking about how she did a pilot, all right, and you had the Asian martial artist, and basically it came down to that all the characters from Kill Bill. But anyway,
mhm.
um, you ever made that connection before?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit, not fully, but yeah,
Yeah,
somewhat.
but yeah. So basically, that's what they were doing with Section 31, is they were just trying to create a Suicide Squad type, archetype of a D&D, team.
Mhm.
That, but yeah, no, that show sucked, and there was a reason that we got onto that. Um, Let me see here. Anything else that, I mean, we really did not talk that much about civilians.
We went,
No, we squirreled hard.
this is the bullseye, but we're.
Let me see. Civilian professions, you got lawyers and politicians. We've seen
Mhm,
those. Artists
mhm,
and entertainers. We've seen those.
right,
Farmers and agriculturalists. We've seen those.
mhm,
All right. Journalists and teachers.
mhm,
All right. And definitely a lot of archaeologists. We've seen that with
mhm.
Picard.
Oh yeah,
But
tons of them.
where's the people running the burger stand?
It's a good question. Oh, you get to see the Klingon who runs the Raktajino stand in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. I mean, and there's all kinds of stuff happening. There's all kinds um of positions that need to be filled by civilians. But
Mhm,
one, we never see it, and two, in a post scarcity society, I wouldn't go do it.
yeah.
All right. If all my needs were being met and I could do what I truly wanted to do and not
Mhm,
have to, not have to go do what I do, I wouldn't be
mhm.
doing what I do. you wouldn't be doing what you do.
True.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think Isaac Arthur is a guy who does a podcast, and actually, if you guys haven't heard of him on here, if you're paying attention to what we're discussing, um, Isaac Arthur does a lot of post-humanity or post-scarcity, um, post-humanism discussions with science fiction. And one of the elements is that, what do people do when you're in a post-scarcity society? Do you find any sort of fulfillment by going out and working when you don't have to? Or do you go out and explore? Do you go out into the world or into the universe to see what's out there because you're curious? Or do you decide that I don't like living in a post scarcity society where I could, call up, hey, I want, 10,000 pieces of sushi.
Yeah.
So you decide that you want to go to Wild West planet, like in Firefly, and live and rough it out in the western United States on a planet, you know, for all intents and purposes. I mean,
Is there a point far enough? Because
mhm,
we all, whenever we romanticize, a time, we always look back at,
mhm,
oh, there was, I want you, if I, had been, in King Arthur's time, or if I had been in the Renaissance, or, something like that. There's always something Roman era. All right, Wild West world.
mhm.
Is there going to be a time when people romanticize about the early 2000s and say, oh, if only I was back in the Bitcoin days? All right.
Without getting into politics, I'm going to say yes, absolutely, because there are people who romanticize Nazi Germany. I mean, I'm serious about it, and it makes you sort of shudder.
Yeah.
But there are people who I've seen people with collections of artwork, and like if we'd only been able to go ahead and build this, our European society would have been so much better. I mean, it,
All right.
it, it, it's disturbing on so many levels.
Well, you see that nowadays when people talk about like Genghis Khan.
Hmm.
All right. Genghis Khan, they talk about now how he brought such, trade and innovation and all this stuff like that and united
Hmm.
whole swaths of Asia and all this stuff like that. But they don't talk
Hmm.
about how he killed 1 in 5 people on the planet Earth during that time period,
Hmm.
or how, he raped so many women that if you're Asian, you got a 1 in 12 chance of having Genghis Khan's DNA in you.
I mean,
Um,
even some of the English have like a
yeah,
good percentage
well,
chance.
I'm just talking about the Asian. I'm not, yeah. And so there is a certain romantic. I mean, once you step far enough back
Hmm.
away from something, you can romanticize it all, all that you want
Hmm.
because you are removed from the horrors of it. And as we go further and further away from World War II, there's less people that were alive from
Hmm.
then, and so it's the horrors of it are fading from our memory.
Hmm. It's the
And
rose-colored glasses thing.
yeah, yeah,
People like to see what they want to see. They don't like looking at the negative connotations. Like one of the things about the illusion that people have about the British Empire, they make, oh, the British Empire was great. The heyday of the British Empire. The British Empire was built on the blood, sweat, and tears of lots and lots of people who were brutally persecuted. I mean, we're not even talking about just one nation. We're talking like the Indians. Uh, massive amounts of people died as slaves for a long period of time under British rule.
well, two things. One, I heard
Hmm.
that there are like close to 100 um different countries in the
Hmm.
world celebrate an Independence Day from England.
Hmm.
And
And there's
two,
a
it was
reason.
this great joke I heard. It said, it was someone had said, "Well, the sun never sets on the English Empire," and the other person responded, "Yeah, because even God doesn't trust them in the dark." All right.
I mean, the British East India Company had a fearsome reputation, and
Mm.
they were civilian. They weren't a military arm, but they
I thought,
conducted. I mean, they had writ to go ahead and conduct operations and business,
oh yeah,
but they weren't strictly speaking military. But they had cannons and they had ships and they had the whole 9 yards. Um,
I thought
and
that
they
was
could go
the
out.
Dutch East India Company.
Oh yeah, Dutch. Well, what was it? What am I thinking of then?
I mean, don't get me wrong. The the British had their own thing, but yeah, it was the Dutch East
Yeah,
Indian Company. They were the
that's
ones that
right.
were really big in the slave trade.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into the tyranny of the nice guy, you don't need to look much further than the 19th and 18th centuries because it's replete with examples of it. We've come to liberate you from your wealth. We're
Hmm.
going to help you learn new things, but we're going to make sure that we take all your wealth with us. And so, I mean, and so it goes. I mean, it's not that I'm happy about it or that I think it's great. In fact, exactly the opposite. But at the same time, to ignore what your history has to say is also very stupid, to be honest.
I
Um,
concur, and I think once again we've gotten off track
yeah,
because we do that so well.
yeah,
Um,
we have a lot of points that we like to discuss.
there's so many points. I mean, just saying civilians and Federation, you knew that we were going to be getting off track. Ad
Mhm.
infinitum.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see. I had lots of little stuff here, just little talking points. No money, no real struggle. And when people get to the point where they don't have anything to struggle against, that's when you get to stagnation in societies.
Hmm.
Um, Let me see. Ooh, the underbelly of the Federation.
Oh, that's a good point.
All right. Criminals, smugglers, black markets, they have prison planets, prison colonies. So
Hmm.
there's a whole, there's a whole, criminal element going on in the Federation. Wow, we're at an hour 16. Um, yeah. And also there's a gap between the civilians and Starfleet. I mean, are people just lining up to get into Starfleet just so they can have that better life, better than even what the civilians have?
It's a question of what is civilian life really like for people on a planet versus a starship. Um, from what it's shown, it's actually pretty idyllic. I mean, if you enjoy having all your needs met and not having to work, um,
But
but at the same time, the question of the underbelly is why the underbelly. I mean, let's look at the underbelly just real quick. What we've seen. Okay. So in the underbelly of Star Trek, because in the first series, in Star Trek, the original series, you don't really see it because Roddenberry was like, there's no drug taking, there's no criminal element really. It's a
right.
utopia. It's not until you get to Star Trek 3 that you see a sort of seedy bar, and you can bring up the guy who's the backward talking captain I talked about, um, who's the freighter captain who comes to visit McCoy. Um, he is pretty much the only example I have of um, the the seedy bar site on Earth in San Francisco. It attracts folks like this guy who can't who comically puts all of his words in the wrong place. Your
Very
planet,
Yoda.
welcome.
But
So but the point being is that you don't really get to, or you don't really get the seedy bar until, or the underbelly until you get to Picard, and you see really just horrible neighborhoods with people taking drugs. You have Vulcan gangsters. You have people who are you know obviously out for themselves and don't care and are going to kill you, and they're going to sell you drugs, drops in your eyes, and stuff like that. So there's definitely a criminal element in the future in the utopia. Um, but why they would need to be is the question, really.
I know. I mean, that is the question. I mean, realistically, I mean, even in a post-scarcity society, if you can just get your hands on a hot rodded replicator, you can have anything you want made.
Hmm.
I mean, you want eye drop drugs? Yeah, do do do
You're
do.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is, do you decide that you want to be a criminal? Is that what it is?
Well,
You
maybe
decided one
that's what
morning,
fulfills you.
I'm really tired of being a nice guy, so I'm going to go out and cause some trouble.
That's what I want in my society. Um,
And
what
you're a Vulcan. You decide logic dictates that I go out and cause as much trouble as possible today
and
for the
another
good of the
question
many.
is, when it comes to, the world's like, okay, so apparently for the most part until you hit Picard, the Earth was redone into where it's a paradise.
Hmm.
All right.
Hmm.
And so it's a paradise. So that
Hmm.
means in order for it to be a paradise, you had to get rid of the mass of humanity.
Hmm.
All right. Because we already talked about how there's going to be a population boom due to the,
Hmm.
the better medicine.
Hmm.
All right. So either there's a population boom and then they had to ship everybody off planet and only the deserving people get to go to the paradise, which is Earth,
Hmm.
or this utopian Starfleet has somehow placed some kind of one child rule
Hmm.
onto all the humans, and you only get to have more children if ooh that could be a whole reason that people are working towards doing things in order to build up social credits so that they
Hmm.
can have more family.
That's a good point, and that actually reflects on to what Picard says in First Contact, because we work to better ourselves, to improve ourselves,
Right.
not to gain money or possessions or accumulate wealth. We do it to elevate ourselves and improve ourselves.
Yeah,
So I think that's a valid point.
but that's the utopian view of it. The actual view of it is that they've locked down your reproductive abilities from birth. All right.
Hmm.
And the only way that you get permission to have a child is you have to do something that's valued according to whatever the authorities view as a valuable contribution. All
Hmm.
right. So
So you get to have kids because you contributed.
basically, you get to have kids because you contributed, and it's this, reproduction panel over here that decided whether or not you contributed enough. Ooh, that could lead to a lot of, burning civil unrest underneath.
You might want to actually read some Larry Niven books
I
on
love
known
Larry Niven.
space. So if you know Larry Niven's known space books about how Earth is in the future, it's
I
basically that. I
I
mean,
haven't read Niven in a while, but yeah, I used
Mhm.
to back in the day. I used to read. I got to start reading. I am so I got too many irons in the fire, man.
I know, I know
I
that
don't
feel.
get to read anymore.
I understand. But no, in the known space universe, Earth culture has become very much post scarcity.
Mhm.
They have everything that they could want, and the population was going to explode. So they go, "Oh well, that's nice, but you can't really have kids."
Right.
So the other part of it is that while there is a colonial movement out of from Earth, it's still promulgated in effect only out to a certain range from Earth. So it's not all the way out to the edge of the galaxy.
They're not dicking with the Borg.
No, but I mean, I think the known space universe. I could be completely wrong. So Niven fans, don't tack me up to anything. Don't nail me to the wall over this. But I think it's like something like 70 to maybe I think 300 light years out from Earth. So it's not
Which
a very big known
which
space
still
area.
comprises, a remarkably large volume of stars.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking like again, like we talked about at the beginning, very first episode, you're talking, you know, 300. in a globe, you're talking easily over. I'd probably say estimate. I could probably be lowballing it, but I'd probably say at least 300,000 star systems right there.
Hold on.
Probably.
Let me run her quick, because you know me, I got to figure this stuff out. I can't just leave that open ended.
A lot of them are going to be low mass red dwarfs, which are, I mean, it's
Oh
like
yeah, but that
80% of
doesn't
them.
mean you can't have a space colony there.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could do like you could basically dismantle the planets around the sun, turn them into habitats, and then you'd be able to have yourself a nice little group home for everybody and their brother.
All right, 300 light year globe around Earth. How many stars are there? Within a 100 light year radius, there are approximately 14,000 stars.
Okay.
With an average density of 0.003 stars per cubic light year. Scaling that up to 300 light years would bring 378,000 stars within a 300 light year radius.
So I wasn't too far off. I was a little bit overestimating it.
Yellow sun-like. How many of those are yellow sun-like?
Probably say about 60,000 at most.
Estimates suggest there are roughly 14,000 to 16,000 yellow sun-like stars within 300 light years of Earth.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that point.
AI.
I mean, G1 to G10 class stars are not going to be that numerous, but also the other problem is you might not find all of them are in the same age range as the sun.
Oh
So a
no,
lot of
no.
them,
That's not saying the ones that have, planets around them and age and, in the Goldilocks zone. I mean, there's so many parameters, but even still, there, Carl Sagan, billions and billions of stars and billions of planets.
you do a damn good imitation of Carl. I'll have to say. You must have watched Cosmos as much as I did.
Oh, once or twice. Yeah. So, anyways, we are coming up on an hour and a half, my man. We need to tidy this up.
All right.
Okay. So, do we have an idea what we want to talk about next time?
Do you want to talk about the whole problem with genetics and whatnot, since we raised that point this time around?
That is,
or do you want to do something else?
That is a sticky subject. We could
in a
talk.
lot of ways.
We could talk genetics. We'll talk about talking about genetics. We'll send it to committee and see what committee has to say about this. We'll do this true Starfleet fashion. We'll get a committee to talk to the committee.
Sure. See what they have to say.
Most definitely. But until then, all right, everybody that watched, hi, I'm Ash. This is Sean. He is of the USS Beowulf. And subscribe. And if you have any questions about joining the USS Beowulf as a remote member, the information will be in the description. Sean will go ahead and put that in there so you know who to contact about joining up. Until then, same space time, same space channel. We're all right. We're done, and it's loading.